campus, right? And so I wanted to introduce you to David and Dawn Nicholson. And so right now, I just want you guys to introduce yourself. What do you do? How long have you been coming here? How long have you been married? And then we'll get into the other questions.
I'm David Nicholson. Have joined the Venture Church family in about the end of 2018. I think it was December. We live in Everett, so the Everett campus is really close and convenient to us. Mm-hmm. I drive a bus in the county and thought I was familiar with all the roads, but we'll get to a story on that later as to how we got to that orange church on a back road. I'm really happy to be part of the Venture family. It's been a pretty amazing experience all the way around.
Awesome. Dawn?
I'm Dawn, and I just went to Venture because of our strange finding the Orange Church. We've been married for 4 years and together about 8. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you guys here. David, I got to hear your story a couple weeks ago, and I was like, mind blown, right? And I'm sure that every time that you tell the story, you're like, it just takes you back to that moment, but you also get to see what God did in such an incredible circumstance. And so I want you to share that today. I want the listeners to hear this story, and I might interrupt at times and ask Dawn to say something because she was a part of it so much. And so, but right now I just want you to share what happened.
On September 12th, 2018, it was a beautiful fall day. I had taken the day off work. I was going to rebuild the chimney on my house, cast a new crown on it. And my sweet Aunt Faye from Tennessee was up visiting. And we were going to have her and my parents and brother over for dinner. So really an expectant day with lots of possibilities. So casting a crown on the chimney was something that probably shouldn't be done alone, but I was. And I'm not so sure that 60 years old is probably the right kind of thing to be doing. But I completed the casting and realized I didn't have enough concrete and was up on the roof looking at it and started feeling really strange, dizzy and a bit weak. I was out of concrete anyway, so I climbed down the ladder, and when I got to the ground, I couldn't breathe. I was physically breathing, but it felt like nothing was happening. So I sat down on the porch to kind of take in, and maybe I just need to relax here for a minute. But that sensation of not being able to breathe kept getting worse, and then I had this interesting sensation of all of a sudden spontaneously, profusely sweating, as if somebody had turned a hose on me. This struck me as not really quite a normal set of circumstances. So I got up. My phone was in my pocket as it is now, and I knew Dawn was in an important business meeting, so I had Siri send a text to her that came out actually as 2 text messages. Please and help. She only knew that I was on the roof by myself. After that, racking head-to-toe pain started feeling like it was crushing me. Like it was all I could do to sit on the porch. And I decided to call 911. And I remember talking to the dispatcher, and I crawled into the house, and I don't remember doing this, but I had probably crawled all the way down the hallway to our bedroom and got on the bed, and I'd never experienced such pain. I was on the bed, the dog was laying beside me, she was shivering and whimpering, and I know I was probably crying out because it hurt so bad. And it's tough to relive this. I heard the medics arrive, and all this cacophony of voices, these thin metallic voices, like I was in a hollow space, shouting out, doing this and doing that, and it felt like there was an army of people there with me. And then all of a sudden, and I do mean literally all of a sudden, all the pain, all those sensations just stopped. And it felt as though I was floating, like I was weightless. And this rush, this unbelievable, overwhelming rush of love swept over me. And just, I immediately knew that everything was going to be just fine. And God was taking care of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt like I was being hugged. It's not like there was a conversation or that I saw anything. There wasn't Grandpa in the fog, in light at the end of a tunnel. It just was this overwhelming, amazing feeling of powerful, powerful love, not like anything I've ever felt before. I don't know how long that feeling sustained, but I gave in to that. And then that sensation stopped, and I got really cold, and it felt like I was disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last I remember of that. I have some vague memory of bumping across the lawn on a gurney.
Dawn, where were you at? Did you make it there at this time?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was at work. So
okay.
once I got his text, I was trying to get out of my office as quickly as possible without, freaking people out. So I had to let people know. And we only live 3.5 miles from where I work.
Mm.
So all the way, once I got that text, I tried calling back, of course, and he wasn't responding. And I just kept moving toward home. And all the way home, my car kept calling over and over. And about 3/4 of the way home, a paramedic answered his phone and told me that basically they'd had him in the vehicle already and I could meet them. I did get to the house before the truck left, but yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the humbling, frightening, horrifying things, even amongst all the beautiful feelings I was experiencing, is to learn later that they got me to the hospital and Dawn had followed. And when she walked in the door, she was greeted by the hospital chaplain.
Mm.
And from a human standpoint, I was not in good shape. I had died, and they worked on me heroically for a long time. And at some point in that process, the lights came back on. And
how long was it? Did they tell you how long it was?
More than 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And I don't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any knowledge of that in the immediate moment. Subsequently, when I would visit the cardiologist, he would remark that he's never seen anything like it. That sort of a massive heart attack is what I had. Usually is life-ending. And there were some rather grave predictions about what my health would be with the damage my heart sustained in that whole process. And I'm happy to say that, praise God, I've recovered fully. Mm-hmm. And am healthy and, not really suffering from any effects of that, which is kind of an odd place to be, because I was for a few moments at Jesus' feet beside God in this level of love that's the answer that all of us are looking for. And so, part of me says that had I passed, that wouldn't be a bad place to be. But the bigger message is God has tasked me to do something. And I think sharing this story of having a miracle when you don't even know that you've asked for it. I never prayed to say, hey, if something happens, if I have a heart attack or if I get in an accident, please save my life. God knew enough what was in my heart to fix my heart, even without me asking. And I don't say that to endorse that you don't have communication with God, that you don't speak to Jesus regularly and passionately. But the whole thing is so much bigger than any of us can understand. But the payoff for us, what's waiting there, I can't even explain how amazing that is.
Yeah. So you met with the chaplain, and what did you tell him, or what did he say to you? And were you thinking that this was it, or were you like, no, he's going to make it through?
I didn't even know what had happened. I just assumed, because I knew he had been on the roof, I assumed he fell off the roof.
Oh, okay.
So the paramedics didn't even know really what had happened. But when I checked in at emergency, the chaplain was there, and all that he said really is that he was there for me. So that was a little unsettling.
Yeah.
And then we went into the emergency area where he was, and they were working on him pretty profusely and, putting all sorts of wires and implements in and trying to make a decision about what needed to be done. And, everyone was great. I just took it in stride. I mean, what else do you do?
Yeah. How has this event now changed your perspective on life, both of you? Like, are there things that you do differently now from that time to this time? Like, from before that incident to after that incident?
There are some. It didn't, for me, erase, 60 years of habit and training in the world of man that has kept me from being as good a man, as good a father, as good a son, as good a husband as I can be. But it has certainly changed my perspective on what's important and has made it easier for me to accept things that in the past I would probably really rail against and not want to have a part of. I do feel more peaceful. And I guess I've transitioned from having faith and believing to now knowing for absolute certainty that there is something amazing waiting for us. That this thing we experience as life that can sometimes be so excruciating is actually just an instant in the big picture. And so I still battle with my own issues, but I'm definitely more peaceful now, and just bounding with hope about what there is for us.
Yeah. It's really good. So right now, I mean, that's a great segue. I always end with the time of hope, just because everything that went on with COVID, and now we have, everything else that's on top of that now. And people are looking at their businesses. People are looking at relationships and friendships, and you're looking at the world, and you're wondering where the hope comes from, and how do we get hope, and what hope are they holding on to? And I was wondering if you could just leave us with, there are people that are waiting for a miracle to happen in their life, and that's what I get to speak on in a couple weeks, is needing a miracle. And I'm going to talk about this guy who is in captivity that's waiting for a miracle to happen, and he's kind of lost hope, and God gives him that hope and speaks to him. And so I was just wondering if you could just share something with our viewers of just give them hope.
Well, hope is is a part of the foundation of faith, I feel. But when you look at it a little bit farther, I think people want to look for miracles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a society, we tend to have a cessationist view of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that, well, all the big stuff was done back in biblical times, but now we're kind of on our own. I don't think that's true at all. I think that we're just don't have the right lens on. Those miracles happen
Mm-hmm.
every moment of every day. And when we look at it in perspective of what God's trying to do for us, He wants to teach us. I mean, Jesus is our teacher. He wants us to be the best. Would it really do that if He just did everything for us?
Yeah.
So there are trials along the way.
Mm-hmm.
This part of life is hard, but those miracles always happen. And put it this way, you tend to think of things you see in life sometimes as, well, that was an interesting coincidence.
Mm.
But if you step back from that and really think about the odds against something being a coincidence when they have a spiritual and emotional value, there's a different power at work there. That's
Yeah.
not a coincidence. That's
Yeah.
part of the plan. And, keep your eyes open big enough, and
Mm-hmm.
those miracles are there. They're always there.
Yeah.
And be ready to receive them. Be ready to rejoice and be thankful for the small ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's perhaps trite, but for me, I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's not a small thing. And I think a lot of people joke about it, especially guys at my age. They say, well, how are you doing today? Well, I woke up, so I'm doing great.
Yeah. Well, you take it for granted.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Hey, thank you so much, both of you, for being on this. And as always, I hope that this encouraged you. I hope it built up your faith. And thank you for watching. Have a good evening.